what is evolution? Evolution is, I am the result of millions of years of evolution.
How animals change over time.
About life. Is it like changing in way? Life forms, organisms?
It's the beginning of life, or
Like frogs turn into monkeys.
monkeys turn into cavemen. They came into men.
Oh, we studied this. It's a process we come from, or like changing.
Darwin's theory,
Long
which was released for the first time in 1859.
The development of humans and animals over time.
I don't know.
Evolution is a broader term. It's a change of things through time. In biological terms, it's the idea that all the diversity we have today is at the end point, although evolution hasn't ended, but it's due to the process of biological change that has occurred in the past.
In 1831, Charles Darwin famously sailed to the Galapagos Islands. There he noticed huge diversity between species. For example, different shaped beaks among finches. He concluded that these differences were a way of an organism adapting to its environment in order to survive and reproduce. Survival of the fittest.
Natural selection explains how organisms adapted to their environment. Animals are often in competition for limited resources. In this example, we see that having a long neck gave giraffes an advantage in order to feed and survive.
Around 60,000 years ago, Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa, the cradle of humanity, to eventually populate every corner of the earth. But how do we know this?
If you like, or if you think of the human genetics as a stream or a river, and we're flowing out of Africa, there's no tributaries coming into it. It's just a straight stream going back to Africa, and that's it. Now, as being unusual, I think really what the story we're looking at is that this river going back to our ancestral origins, it has lots of tributaries coming in different places, and that Africa is probably quite a complex place in that there's different types of different populations of archaic humans in Africa, and maybe they're coming into the human pool at different stages. But this is a major finding.
The longer evolution has to act on a population, the greater variation it will arise. The genetic difference between African populations has been proven to be greater than between non-African races. This confirms that we are all descendants of Africa. Our story probably starts when the African rainforest started to recede to a sub-Saharan landscape. This led to food sources becoming isolated and separated by large expanses of flat ground. The platform foot, extensible knee joint, and curved lower spine of bipedal organisms conserved energy while travelling between food sources.
So it's quite clear somewhere in Africa, several million years ago, our species went from being knuckle walkers, tree dwellers, to being upright walkers. So becoming bipedal, that's a big one. It frees up the hands.
These adaptations were acquired by our ancestors, the Australopithecines. However, these australopiths only had the brain size of a modern chimpanzee. A marked increase in cranial size towards what we see today in Homo sapiens was not seen until the rise of the genus Homo.
The idea is that you could have some small change, say that increases intelligence, that allows those people who carry that mutation to maybe control their environment a little bit better. That lets them create a niche in which subsequent mutations that increase intelligence are more selectively advantageous. And then you get this kind of snowball effect where that just amplifies over time, and eventually the humans end up creating their own niche.
The next divergence produced two of the most famous members of the genus Homo, Neanderthalis and Sapien. Archaeological findings of shell beads and ornamentation dated to 42,000 years ago provide us with evidence of the humans' path through Turkey. From here, nomadic tribes of humans continued their journey using the Danube to travel further west. However, these early humans were not the first inhabitants of these lands. In fact, they were entering the territory of another species of the genus Homo, the Neanderthals. It was long thought that Homo sapiens were direct descendants of Neanderthals. However, modern sequencing techniques have shown that the differences in the mitochondrial DNA of Neanderthals and humans is 24%, while the difference in the mitochondrial DNA of Neanderthals is 3.5%.
One big question is, whenever they encounter other archaic, now extinct forms of humans, like Neanderthals, or there's other types in Asia, again, just archaic, extinct forms, we know about them now, do they interbreed with them? And if they do, that would lead to, maybe the largest amount of difference. And for many years we thought, no, that's not the case, because people had sequenced thousands and thousands of human mitochondrial DNAs, and Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA had been sequenced over 10 years ago, and we'd never found a single Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA in any living human. So the stock answer was there was no Neanderthal or archaic human contribution to our lineage. The answer seems to be probably there's some Neanderthals. It's a small amount, 1 to 4% in humans outside Africa. So there's some sort of interbreeding going on with early humans. There are other things happening to human genetics today to do with migration and mixture between populations that are having a much bigger impact on evolution, I think, than any particular natural selection. And if you look at Ireland, one of the things that one of the couple of strongest evolutionary influences in our history in this island is selection for very light skin. We've got very, very light skin. And why is that? Because there is a selection in human biology for the ability to let some sunlight into the skin. There's also selection not to let too much in if you live in a very bright region, but we need a certain amount of sunlight for vitamin D synthesis. And over the course of people's history in this island, and in places like it, where there's a lot of cloud cover and relatively high latitude, so not much sunlight, skin has grown lighter. And are we still evolving that way? Well, look at Ireland today, apart from sort of fake tan.